welcome to the mentorship program lunch. Thanks for being here and for making it. I hope you find the session useful, in particular to meet your mentors and your mentees and have a chat about what your projects might be. We're here to answer any questions. I'm Selena Aragon. I'm the SSI Communications Lead, and we have Jacqueline Laird as well, the SSI Communications Officer, and a couple more of the SSI staff who are helping out. Steve Crouch, the SSI software lead, and Mario Antonioletti, who will be presenting today, and he is also a mentor. So just before we start, let's go through some of the housekeeping items. So please, if you haven't done it yet, please set your display name as your full name. If you open the participants tab, you'll be able to find your name and then click rename. If you have any technical issues, please try exiting and then rejoining the room. We'll let you in again. If you're still experiencing any issues, please let us know on the Zoom chat. Make sure you raise your virtual hand to ask any questions to the speaker. It is located on the reactions at the bottom of your screen. And wait until one of our moderators signal that it's your turn to speak. We ask that you don't aggressively speak over others or overly dominate the conversation when there is one. Please try to be inclusive of everyone. Please don't tweet or share publicly the links that we send you to the Zoom meeting. These are only for the mentorship program participants. If you do have any thoughts and you want to share them with us, you can do it here, but you can also do it on Twitter. You can tag us at SoftwareSaved and use the RSCamps hashtag. If you have any questions outside of the Q&A sessions, please pop them in the Zoom chat and we'll reply to them. One of us will reply to them. So as I mentioned, the session will be recorded and the recording will be shared with mentors and mentees who couldn't attend today. If you don't mind sharing your face, please turn on your video, but if you do, we don't mind if you switch your video off. Keep yourself muted when not speaking to minimize the background noise. This is the agenda for today. We'll try to keep time and we'll try to keep it to 1 hour. If you want to extend your chat with your mentor or your mentee, please feel free to do so, but I will ask you to move to a different Zoom room or to Skype or Teams. And now we're going to go and do a little icebreaker. This is just to get to know each other. If I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, and if you can introduce yourself briefly to your group and chat about what's your favorite thing to do outside work. We have an agenda document on that link, which is also being pasted on the Zoom chat. If you can share your answers there, that would be great. There's also a roll call at the beginning of the document. Please add your names and whatever else you want to share about you there. I want to talk to you a bit about us, about the SSI and about the research software camps. The SSI is a national facility for cultivating world-class research through software. Hang on. Sorry, just give me 1 second. There we go. We're a collaboration between the universities of Edinburgh, Manchester, Oxford, and Southampton. Our tagline is better software, better research. Which tells you about what we do as an institute. We basically advocate for all things research software. That means we provide expertise and services needed to kind of help people work through their software needs. We also run a lot of programs, events, work with policy, and develop tools to support communities developing and using software in research. Just a brief note that in 2018, we were awarded funding from all 7 UK research councils, which at the beginning we weren't. The SSI has been running now for 11 years. So yeah, it feels like 11 or 12 years. I think it's going to be 12 years now. That's an achievement that we've been funded through all of the research software councils. Okay, the SSI is divided in 5 teams, but we all work together. We have policy, who work on promoting the place of software and research in the UK. We have some examples of that. If you haven't heard of them, we can talk about it later if you like. But there's, for example, the Research Software Engineering Society, and recently they've been doing a lot of work with the Hidden Ref, which is all about advocating for research outputs that aren't recognized currently as part of research. The software team, which is led by Steve, who is in the colleges now, is made up of research software engineers who give advice and help develop software. Steve has done a lot of work for the camp to do with the software surgery and also the mentorship lunch. Then we have training, which works partners with the carpentries, and the fellowship program, which is something we also do. We also run to deliver training. A lot of the live sessions have been planned with the advice and guidance of the training lead at the SSI. Community works developing communities of practice, which is done by supporting people to understand and address issues around research software and what needs those communities may have. The community team organizes the fellowship program and also another event we run, which is the collaborations workshops. It's an annual conference. And then we have communications, which is formed by myself and Jacqueline. And we work in reaching out to our target audiences, exploiting our different platforms to enable engagement. And we also run the research software camps and of course this mentorship program. Now about the research software camps, they run for 2 weeks every 6 months. It's a fairly new initiative. We only started them last year. And our main aims are to raise awareness around research software issues that communities may have, but may not be aware of, or may not be aware that there's work being done towards that. Our other aim is to reach out to new audiences. And during those 2 weeks, we run live sessions, a mix of workshops and panel discussions, or maybe pre-recorded talks. We run the mentorship program, which lasts about 2 months. And we do a software surgery, which we kind of do, well, we're going to do every day this week for about an hour. Well, not every day, from Tuesday to Thursday this week for an hour. And the idea is that people can come and talk to an expert about whatever it is about research software that they have a question on. For this research software camp, we chose the topic Next Steps in Coding. There are 10 workshops planned aimed at beginner and intermediate learners. You can see how we've mapped it out in this diagram. And we also have a panel discussion today around career paths and training gaps in research software. If you're interested in attending, I think there's still a few places left. Just to note that we've sold out on most of the sessions, most of the workshops, but if someone is interested, please get in touch and we'll let you know if there are any cancellations closer to the date or if there's any space on the day of the workshop. Does anyone have any questions so far about this? If not, then I'm gonna give the space to Mario. We're gonna do our lightning talks now, Mario and then Rebecca. Mario.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Give me a second. Okay, and now I'm going to put my slides up. I've got 5 minutes to give you a presentation. I'm aware that the person I'm supposed to be mentoring, and you're going to have to teach me how to pronounce your name. Ate Benro, I'll call you Dr. Dasso. That'll be easier. Anyway, let me start. So my name is Mario Antonioletti. I work for EPCC. I'm also involved with the SSI, and I work with Selena and Jacqueline, who you've met in this experience so far. So I'm going to be talking about my mentoring experiences. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what actually happened. So my motivation was primarily the fact that I'm involved with a number of groups here in Edinburgh. One is the Community of Edinburgh Research Software Engineers, CERSE, and I'm also involved in software data carpentry courses. And I've often thought about setting up a voluntary mentoring framework or scheme. But although I could see how the mentee would benefit, I was never sure, how does a mentor benefit from all this? Is it just a case of being altruistic and giving your time and then just for the benefit of the other individual? Or is there a tit for tat? I mean, so maybe you could get your name in a publication to progress your personal career while helping the mentee progress their career. So I wasn't sure what the motivation here was. So when they set up the mentoring scheme for the RSE, the Research Software Camps last year, I jumped at the chance of doing it. And this took place roughly between August and October of last year. And there was a chance for me to explore the pros and cons of actually doing the mentoring myself. So what I did is I was paired up with Dr. Yen Lee from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. Jan already had some knowledge about TARP. I was keen to improve. And so on our first meeting, we worked out about a process. We'd meet once a week. We'd use Zoom. I got Jan to set up a GitHub account so we could share code. She was not familiar with Git, so I got her to install Git on her machine, but we basically used RStudio as a Git client. We took minutes and actions every meeting, and then we try and evolve things. So I asked Jen to look for a problem that would allow us to frame the mentorship and to do something in particular. And what Jen came up with was this thing in The Guardian. So The Guardian published this series of articles under the Anonymous Academic scheme. And there was one particular article, which was entitled, "My Student Have Paid Me £9,000 and Now They Think They Owe Me." And in this case, if you look on the right here, you've got this chart with all of the different articles in the series. And this particular article got about 344 actually, comments. So it's way over anything else. I mean, the next highest was just under 2,000. So we wanted to increase our understanding as to why this was the case. So I thought, easy, right? I'm just going to use RVest, which is an R web scraping package. I get the content, I get the comments and the responses, and everything will be easy from there on. But although I easily got the page, I could not find the comments. And it turned out that the comments were being generated using JavaScript. And I don't know if ever you looked at this, and there are solutions to do with JavaScript are not very nice. There's something called Selenium, but not great. Anyway, so I tried to solve this problem. I used the Google Chrome developer tools, and eventually by looking under the bonnet, I found the JavaScript was actually going to a Guardian API to get the comments and responses. And so you could bypass the whole of JavaScript and just get the contents and the metadata about the comments. And there was another Guardian API that allowed you to extract the articles themselves. So from there on, we were kind of all set. So we tried a number of different things. We tried networking the comments and responses, and you have a view here on the right about the comments. So the orange dots that you see are the comments, and the purple ones are the responses to that. We did some sentiment analysis. Is this a happy article or a sad article? Well, I mean, roughly. And we did lots and lots of plots. In effect, though, so at the end of the day, we didn't really identify a reason from the analysis we did over the time we were involved together. I think I gave Jan lots of things to look at. But some of the tasks we started or proved to be hard, or at least they were hard until you suddenly thought, this is not hard at all. You just need to think about it and going in sideways. So what we tended to do is me acting as a trailblazer to solve the problem, and then I would walk Jan through the solution. And she seemed to be happy from this. So she has all the data and the sample code, but I've not seen that much about activity on GitHub. It doesn't mean she's not doing any, but she's not sending the changes to GitHub. I talked to her recently, and she still has intent to do more stuff on it. But at the end of the mentorship, we were both happy and we had a good working relationship. So this is my final slide. So coming up to a conclusion, is mentoring worth doing? Yeah, I learned a lot from it. I mean, maybe I learned more than Yen did. I was certainly taken out of my comfort zone, and I think we both did learn a lot. Things I would keep and I would change. So Peter, I would keep GitHub. I think that's interesting. Keep using weekly meetings, Zoom or Microsoft Teams. I prefer Zoom. Keep minutes and actions on using Markdown. I think I would do the Menti do more work. Help resolve problems as they arise. And then I would try and pick a problem that's closer to the critical path and not in a different kind of area, because once your life takes over, it's kind of difficult to do other things. And I use a little bit of more art Markdown over R scripts. I think that's more informative. And that's me. Back to you, Selena.
Thank you very much, Mario. We can have a session of Q&A at the end. So I'm just going to move on to Rebecca now. Rebecca, are you happy to share your screen? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that up? Is that sharing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fab. Well, thank you very much, Mario. That was excellent. Yes, so I'm Rebecca Hamilton, and it's great to be here with everyone for the launch of the mentorship scheme. So I took part in the mentorship scheme last year. I am a biomechanics researcher. I'm a postdoc working at Cardiff University, and with biomechanics research, we collect large amounts of human-based movement data. So there's this constant issue of collecting in large amounts of data and then trying to analyze it and process it, interpret it, combine it in lots of different ways. And there's just always huge amounts of data to work with. So it's a regular issue within a lot of biomechanics researchers across the board. And I really wanted to learn a bit about some software tools that might help aid that process, and I've heard a lot about using R, so I was specifically interested in working a little bit more to help to use R for some of the work that I was specifically doing with biomechanics data. And so I was paired with Dr. Heather Turner, who's based at the University of Warwick and has a lot of experience with R. We set up some very specific goals for this 2-month time period, and within those 2 months we had weekly meetings also on Zoom. I like, Mario, that that you guys set up a GitHub that you then sort of continue to update throughout. We use a shared Google Docs for the sort of like meetings and actions points, and to put down what the goals would be for those 2 months and how I was keeping accountable to those goals, and what we were then going to discuss within our weekly meetings and go throughout that week, what my homework would be for that week, and then that we would then go through in our meeting. But then I like how GitHub would sort of help the continuation of that ongoing afterwards. So that might be something that I'll maybe try and take on further afterwards. But yeah, so we set up some very specific goals for that 2 months that would help me get a good starting foundation on how to use R as a data tool, and as I was also thinking in my head as a statistical tool, because for my background work, I always used SPSS, and so my instinct is still to go back to SPSS because that's what I learned and that's what I know, and trying to sort of learn more about the some of the more software development side and with R and MATLAB. So working then with Heather, we wanted to get me into a good foundation of how to work with R on a foundation level, and then go specifically into some biomechanics data examples. So these are just some of the images of the things that I started to work with Heather when we set out some of my goals. And I've discovered that there is a huge wealth of resources freely available, so that anyone could actually work through them. Having Heather point me towards them meant that there was specific guidance on what I should go to, and there's a lot with RStudio primers. There was loads even just within that I could work through and sort of try and find the specific ones, working on the really basic stuff to start with, and with the basics. And I think it was the R ladies Sydney, they set up quite a lot of stuff themselves as well. So there was a whole sort of host of resources that I could then access and that anyone can access freely that I could work through. And I found that working with the ggplot2 package was my favorite thing and was my favorite part to work through, because I was really fond of the data visualizations. And so then it became a really fun exploratory exercise to work through the ggplot2 package and look at all the different types of visual data visualizations that you could use that you would not be able to do with other softwares and packages that are very sort of set up for input output. So that was something that I really enjoyed working with. And I also enjoyed the fact that R, since being open source, has a really great global community with it that comes along with that. It meant that as learning that an open source software, that I would then be able to access it and use it regardless of what institution I work for. So if I move institution, I should still be able to have access to R. And if I have that knowledge, I can still use that skill and that knowledge. And whereas with other platforms, it might be that you need the institution to have invested in using and funding the use of that platform, which might not be the case every place that you go to. So there's a benefit to me for working towards upskilling with this platform specifically. And then the added benefit was that there's actually quite a large global community. So then there's loads on Twitter and YouTube and Slack, where if you're not quite sure how to do something, someone else probably does. And if you put it out there, there's the likelihood is that someone will respond and show you how to do that. So I think that's a huge benefit to learning more about this software. This is just an image here specifically of the biomechanics example that we worked through. I realized that I would not have been able to do this without Heather's help. With working a bit with ggplot2, that was sort of like the initial starter package that I enjoyed working through, but then we started working with some other packages as well. Because with biomechanics data, we had to read in data with lots of different headings, and so trying to get the complexity of that. And so working through with Heather that, I realized what was necessary to enable myself to do that and work towards sort of being able to read in biomechanics data and then automating it for multiple times over, or then how I would then modify it afterwards. So I put up on this slide here some of the resources that I use and that I found really useful. So if you've got access to the slides later, you could have a look through them if you were interested in R and wanted to do that. I've also put my contact details up if you want to get in touch specifically about using R or using R for biomechanics data. It's something that I've tried to keep up doing afterwards, but that is actually really difficult to input the time afterwards. So then signing up for this, which for any sort of mentors or mentees is a really useful way to make sure you have carved out that time and committed that time. And that was a really crucial aspect for me anyway, and I'm sure for a lot of other people, that once you've committed to it, you're accountable to doing it. And that was something that was then really hard to do afterwards. So maybe I'll suggest to Heather we set up a GitHub to continue afterwards. But yeah, that's me. Happy to chat afterwards if anyone's got any questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Does anyone have any questions for either of the speakers? No? Okay. Well, if you do have any questions, yeah, I'm sure Rebecca and Mario can will be happy to answer them by email, or if you want to chat with them, you can always see if they're available for that. So now I'm gonna go through some of the mentorship expectations and guidelines, the code of conduct. So I think everyone should be able to see this. Yes. I can't. There we go. So just to get you started with your mentor or your mentee, later on when we finish the session and you start kind of meeting up with your with whoever we paired you up, you should make sure you introduce yourselves. You may have already done that by email, but please make sure you talk about your background a bit, your skills background, as well as your research background or your projects that you're doing just now, and discuss your expectations. So what are you expecting to achieve in the 2 months that you have, or in the 10 weeks that you have for the program? What are you hoping to learn? And it's important that you discuss this with your mentor to see if this is achievable, because that will allow you to choose a project that has realistic time scales and realistic expectations. You should set milestones with your mentor, so that you know what you're achieving each week, or you review your progress, and as Rebecca said, you maintain that accountability that helps you progress through the 10 weeks. And make sure you make sure you take collaborative notes. Those are really helpful, just to go back and see what you've been discussing with your mentor. It would be a good idea to agree who's taking the notes. The notes, you can either take turns, or you can decide that the mentee can decide to just take the notes. And as I said, set milestones and agree on weekly actions. Now, what to expect in terms of the whole 10 weeks from us, and what we expect from you. I'll be sending check-in emails throughout the 10 weeks, just to make sure that things are going well and that they're moving along. If something isn't going as you'd expect, do let me know. Feel free to get in touch even outside those check-in emails. If you have any question, or just something isn't going as planned, just let me know. I'll be able to help. What we expect from you. Oops, that didn't load. Okay, well, it's supposed to say blog post or talk, pre-recorded talk. This is to record your journey, to talk about your journey. I think it's a good idea if you take notes throughout the 10 weeks about how you've been progressing. That way it'll be easier to write a blog post or to do a talk. We would also like to hear about where you're going next. If you have a different idea for a different blog post, just get in touch with us and we can discuss it. The first draft hard deadline is the 22nd of July. This is the end of your mentorship, and we'll be communicating with you about finalizing your blog post or recording your talk after that. We also have a Code for Thought podcast collaboration with another RSC, and we'll get in touch with further details about this. But if you're interested in being interviewed for one of the episodes, also get in touch. Rebecca was part of one of the episodes for the Code for Thought podcast, and it's just to talk to us about your experience. We have the code of conduct. You can read the long version there. There's also a link in the chat and in the agenda document. But the short version of it is that we don't tolerate harassment in any form. All of your communications should be appropriate for a professional audience. Please be kind to others, and behave professionally in all communication channels. If you have any issues, or you have any questions or complaints, you can contact me on that email below, but you should have my contact details anyway.